Okay. Okay. Can you guys hear me now? Okay, yep. Cool.
think you can't hear us on Zoom, Mel, because we're all. Okay, hi Grace. I'll be calling you down in just a minute. Do you have your PowerPoint set up? Okay, great. We are live. Okay, I want to welcome our television audience and our guests, members, and our interpreter, Jamie, to the Mayor's Commission for the City of Omaha, Mayor's Commission for Citizens with Disabilities for the City of Omaha. We meet monthly on, I think, the fourth Monday, but I've lost count, at 3:30 at the Legislative Chamber at the City County Building at 14th and Farnham, I think, 20th, okay. In any case, members of the public are welcome, or you're also, we try and ensure that a link is available on our Facebook site so that folks can tune in via Zoom if that's easier for you to do. I do want to mention that our meetings are rebroadcast on Channel 22 Cox. I am not sure when those are exactly rebroadcast because it's been kind of a moving target, but they are in KPAO weekly, which we appreciate greatly in terms of just trying to reach our constituencies. Okay. Just a quick update on what we're about. We're the commission, the Omaha Mayor's Commission for Citizens with Disabilities. Our objectives are to promote the quality of life, accessibility, and equity in all aspects related to the city of Omaha on behalf of and in cooperation with citizens who experience disabilities. To this end, we advise the mayor, commission, city department heads, and other personnel on issues of access, representation, employment, housing, and quality of life as they affect city citizens with disabilities and their respective families. We work to serve as a resource for Omaha citizens with disabilities and their families to express concerns and resolutions regarding issues affecting them. We work to publicize to citizens of Omaha the role of the Mayor's Commission and the resources available to assist them, including employment, housing, business, engineering, architects, other situations where other agencies and businesses who have a role in bettering the life of Omaha citizens. We work to promote awareness of the general public on the capabilities, needs, and desires of citizens with disabilities. We work to recognize employers, businesses, schools, organizations, and others who have demonstrated outstanding support in terms of programs and services for citizens with disabilities. We serve to advocate for accessibility issues and implement plans and projects to improve services for our citizens with disabilities. And we review and implement plans and projects as far as that advocating for services for people with disabilities. I could go on, but I won't. I do want to say that we will have introductions at the beginning of the meeting, but we'll have a few minutes for announcements, I think. So if you have a pen and paper handy to take notes, that would be great, as folks can talk about some of the different things that are coming up on the schedules of the membership. With that, we'll do some quick introductions. I'll start. My name is Mark Smith. I'm on the faculty of the University of Nebraska Medical Center's Monroe-Meyer Institute for Genetics and Rehabilitation. That's the University Center for Excellence in Developmental Disabilities for the state of Nebraska, located at UNMC. Our work really focuses around services and supports for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And so that is really who I represent in my role on the Mayor's Commission. I'm also the parent and sibling of young adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities. So it's not only part of what I do at my job, but also part of my personal experience. I can say that disability has been part of my life much longer than it hasn't. So that's who I'm here to represent. Do you want to go ahead, Nancy?
And I'm Nancy Floral, and I'm the Omaha District Supervisor with the Nebraska Commission for the Blind and Visually Impaired. We're the vocational rehabilitation agency that serves individuals that are visually impaired, blind, and deafblind.
I'm Reverend Dr. Lisa Sherman. I'm the pastor at Faith Christian Church here in Omaha, and I serve on the State of Nebraska Emergency Management Council as their pediatric and disability advocate, and I also serve on the state of Nebraska CISM, Critical Incident Rapid Response Team, um, for the state. Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. Megan?
I'm Megan Walls. I'm with Assistology, where I do training and consultation on disability inclusion and accessibility across the lifespan and all disability types. So I'm here with a broader disability community lens, and I'm also the vice chair for the commission.
I'm Stephanie Scavdal, and I'm with Outlook Enrichment. We provide job readiness, independent living, benefits counseling, recreation and cultural activities, and tech training for those that are blind and visually impaired, and I'm here representing them.
Okay, thank you all. I did want to mention that we had a pre-meeting within those topics were some discussions about some concerns that were brought to the commission that we've either are in the midst of responding to or have responded to and are looking to continue those discussions. We did have a quorum, so we approved a number of past minutes and agendas that we have needed to take care of. Not all of our members are here, but we did have a quorum, so that was very welcome. So we approved those. Just trying to think if there's anything I missed. I guess we do have a couple of guests here. I especially want to introduce Ashley Wolf, who's applied to be on the commission and is visiting today. So thank you for being here.
Happy to be here today.
Yeah, thank you. With that, I will introduce, we have two speakers today. The first of which is Grace Young. She's here representing ModeShift, Omaha. My best understanding of ModeShift, although people that are online might correct me, which is fine. That ModeShift is focused on the accessibility of our sidewalks in areas where foot traffic is involved. They're doing quite a bit of work in that area, and accessibility being kind of a critical discussion piece for the commission as it relates to city services and supports. We thought that would be a good area of interest to hear more about. So I'm going to throw it to you, Ashley, and like to hear more about your program.
Yeah. How do I get the presentation pulled up? Sorry.
Was that? Yeah, I know she had it up here. I just don't know how to exit out of that.
Oh, great. Awesome. Okay, that sounds good. All right. Let's do that, and then let's present. Oh, present. Okay, awesome. Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone online. My name is Grace Thomas. I'm a board member with ModeShift Omaha. I've been a board member since November of last year. And yeah, Mark asked for someone to come and speak to you all about ModeShift and what we do. So I'm really excited to be here and kind of give you an overview of the organization, how historically we've interacted with the folks in the community with disabilities, and things that we would be excited to see happen in Omaha as it relates, and take any questions and have a dialogue with you all. So a little bit about ModeShift. We're a grassroots nonprofit transportation organization. We were founded in 2011. We have one part-time staff person, our communications coordinator, that helps us with posting things on social media, organizing events, putting together blogs, interacting with the media. But the vast majority of folks that work with our organization are 100% volunteers. Most of our money comes from individuals. We really don't take many corporate or organizational sponsorships. Our goal is to advocate for transportation options that enhance quality of life and provide opportunities for everyone to live, work, and play. And mostly we do this through education, engagement, influencing decision makers and policies, monitoring plans related to transportation and land use design, or kind of just at a high level. I'll give some more specific examples. So I just wanted to pull some stats that hopefully reflect the way that we as an organization think about transportation users with disabilities. These are just stats that I pulled from blogs that we've written in the past. We know that 31% of adults with disabilities have inadequate access to transportation. Almost over a quarter of folks with disabilities never leave their home because of transportation difficulties. And we also know that traffic is really dangerous in the U.S. Automobile deaths are responsible for 6,000 pedestrian deaths, and lots of folks deal with the aftermath of pedestrian crashes here in the U.S. And then more locally, we recently wrote a blog a few months ago from the National Court Indicator Survey that said a third of Nebraska adults with developmental disabilities listed transportation as their highest barrier, higher than average in the U.S. when it comes to all states. And just talking to volunteers with our organization, people come to us with concerns about transportation. We know that there are lots of issues with pedestrian maintenance, clearing of sidewalks in the winter, alternative routes during construction, and then from the transit aspect, which is also something that we advocate for and care about a lot. We know that MOBI is really limited. I'll talk a little bit more about how transit is funded here locally, but MOBI has a fixed schedule. Rides must be within 3/4 of a mile of the fixed Metro bus route. So that's kind of the lens at which we think about, transportation in the disability community. When we talk about kind of the macro level picture, I always like to lay out kind of the issue that we're driving towards, which is making sure we have adequate resources for transportation initiatives here locally. 80% of Omaha's $322 million capital budget was allocated for automobile capacity. That doesn't even include the really large percentage for street maintenance. Only 8% of funding was allocated for transit in the last CIP budget, with a little over 2.4% for cycling, 2.4% for pedestrian. Omaha spends $36 per capita on transit, which is among the lowest of our peer cities in the nation. Both Salt Lake City and Denver spend well over $200 per capita, if that kind of gives you any insight. So with that being said, kind of highlighting the issue and at a macro level, how we think about transportation and accessibility, I wanted to highlight some of the things that we've done in the past. I think this is Melanie, a board member who's here with us today, which is cool. But we do a variety of different engagement work with the community, bringing attention to lots of transportation issues. This one in particular I wanted to highlight is about sidewalk audits, street sweeps, and coffee chats. So we'll oftentimes go into areas that we've heard there are pedestrian issues, sidewalk issues, and we'll talk to local community members in order to highlight and elevate issues with the sidewalk infrastructure. That could be really big gaps in the sidewalk. I'll show a picture of a pole right in the middle of a sidewalk that makes it really hard for folks of all different accessibility levels to be able to use that infrastructure. A couple of times a year, we always do what we call a street sweep, which is actually taking matters into our own hands and trying to clean up sidewalk areas that are dangerous for pedestrians. We'll take a broom and a bucket, pick up rocks, pick up debris that's not safe for cyclists and pedestrians. And then we always like to have coffee chats with different groups. I wanted to put a quote from a coffee chat that happened last year. We had a mobility coffee chat with folks who use wheelchairs, other types of accessibility equipment. So really trying to elevate the voices of people who, have a clear understanding of accessibility issues as it comes to transportation in Omaha. We're really excited to have a great grant this year from the America Walks organization to do some listening campaigns with pedestrians throughout Omaha. We're calling it our Sidewalk Stories. series. And we plan to highlight stories of those impacted by a lack of sidewalk connectivity, lack of good pedestrian infrastructure locally, and really elevate these throughout Omaha so that everyone has an understanding of why this infrastructure is so important, who's affected when we don't maintain our sidewalks, and so on. So if actually anyone here is interested or has a different perspective on the importance of sidewalks, we'd love to hear your story and highlight that through this grant. Advocacy is really important to ModeShift, and we try as much as possible to collaborate with City Council and Metro Transit. I just wanted to put up a few examples. There was a law before City Council last year to close trails in the evening and at night. And ModeShift worked really hard with the media, came and testified in front of City Council to keep those trails open 24/7. That's important because folks who rely on walking or biking for transportation often use those, especially at nighttime, as a safe way to get away from vehicle traffic. So keeping those open is an accessibility issue for lots of folks in the city, and we were really happy to see that they are still open 24/7. Another example, Metro Transit, when they opened the Orbit line, they originally did not allow for e-bikes. We actually have a couple of volunteers with physical disabilities that prevent them from riding a standard bicycle. So using an e-bike is really important for them. They also rely on Metro Transit, so being able to take their e-bike on Metro Transit was a huge deal. So we did some advocacy work with Metro in order to make sure that they knew this was an issue, and they addressed it, and these are allowed now on buses, which is great. There was also a case on 55th and Poppleton where a pole was put in the middle of the sidewalk. This is a huge accessibility issue for lots of folks, so we really work to raise awareness about this infrastructure problem with City Council representatives, highlighted it in the media. I thought I had one more. Oh. I don't know where the slide went, but I also wanted to highlight that we do these events called Walk With Us events, where we pick different areas of town that have known transportation speeding issues. Maybe traffic is moving really quickly, maybe pedestrians are too close to the traffic and it feels unsafe. Maybe there's been an injury or a death in that part of town. And we take physical signs like the one here in this photo. We also take a speed gun and document speeding in that area, and really try to highlight safety improvements that could be made to that area, working with media to make sure the community knows that this is a problem that there are solutions for that just need to be implemented. I wanted to highlight just a couple of really macro level policies and actions that we are always top of mind for us at ModeShift. One is having holistic sidewalk improvement plans and snow removal in the winter. Right now, it's mostly up to the private property owner to take care of this, which means that especially in the winter time, sidewalks are really unsafe and very spottily taken care of. So you might have one section of sidewalk that folks are able to traverse, and then another that is really dangerous. So having a unified plan for the city would make a really big deal. I think allocating more CIP budget, as I mentioned right at the beginning of this presentation, to pedestrian, cycling infrastructure, and transit, increasing MOBI's budget, increasing our transit budget at large would make a big difference. And we're excited to hear the outcome of the Vision Zero plan. It says fund Vision Zero plan strategies, but what I meant to say was fund Vision Zero plan strategies. Both are true. We definitely want to see funding for whatever the outcome of that plan is, so that those great strategies can be implemented. We have a lot of really awesome plans here in Omaha that sadly get put on the shelf, don't get implemented, and we're really excited to see what comes out of that plan be put into action. I know there's going to be some great stuff in there. So I guess just a couple of final things. If anyone has any questions, you can reach out to me at gracethomas@modeshiftomaha.org. If you're interested in providing any stories for those sidewalk stories, that'd be awesome. We rely on memberships to function, so those are available at modeshiftomaha.com. And I guess other events coming up, we're having a Walk With Us event in the next month that will be posted on our Facebook page. And I'll also be sending Mark and Kat a screen reader available version of these slides in case you want to take a look or have any questions. But happy to answer any questions, hear a little bit about what you all are working on.
Awesome information. I really appreciate kind of the high and low level examples of what you all are doing. If we're in a neighborhood, we're taking a walk, going for a run, we're on a bike, whatever, and we see like infrastructure issues like displaced concrete, the poles in the middle, like what process do you suggest we follow? Like, it doesn't have to necessarily be our neighborhood, but like who do we report it to, and then who's accountable, and like how do we make sure that something actually happens?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And Jeff can correct me with anything I say incorrectly, but our advice is always to reach out to the mayor's hotline first and make sure that the mayor's hotline is aware. I think the more neighbors in the community you can get to report that issue, the higher likelihood you have of making something happen. And then if an issue persists, and we've done a couple of Walk With Us events where the issue has persisted, Mode Shift is really here to be a resource to kind of elevate your voice if the problem isn't fixed or if it's a bigger problem than what the city is budgeted or willing to solve. We work with lots of different neighborhoods that have specific issues that they want to see changed, highlighting it in the media, trying to make sure other neighbors are aware and that they can call. Those are all things that Mode Shift can help out with.
Awesome, thanks.
So, are you primarily a volunteer organization?
Yeah, that's correct. We have one part-time employee. She works 10 to 15 hours a week right now. But the rest of our board is 100% volunteer.
Great.
I'm really excited to see the work with pedestrians. I think at the beginning of the year, in January, there was like 5 pedestrians that were hit. And I think at our February meeting, one of our board members wasn't able to come because she got hit, just crossing the street in her wheelchair. So I think really, raising the consciousness of pedestrians, and, we tend to cater to the cars, but I know that's a big issue for bicyclists, which Mark can attest to too. So,
yeah.
So thank you for your work.
Yeah, thank you. Mm-hmm.
How do you guys work with do you work with the planning department on curb cuts? Because I've noticed that, and this was a problem last year, that we haven't got under control, in my opinion. But like, if a third party comes in and redoes the street and not put a curb cut in, they work on some concrete panels, how do you guys work?
Do you mean a curb cut, like accessibility down from the curb? Yeah, that's a good question. Unfortunately, as an organization, we're not able to catch every, update to construction. We really advocate for the complete streets model. Omaha has a plan called Complete Streets that, should put a lot of these really basic infrastructure improvements in place and require them. But unfortunately, it's not really implemented throughout the city. But that's definitely something that we try to highlight when we do sidewalk audits, as an example. But yeah, I wouldn't say that we have specific dedicated awareness effort for those specifically.
My understanding, at least from my limited knowledge, is that you've done quite a bit of work around in the Dodge Street corridor.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed you mentioned that, or you put a picture of the cell tower in the middle of the sidewalk, which I think has gone national now,
Yeah.
as being an example of excellent planning and coordination. Are there other areas of town that the organizations emphasize to take a look at, accessibility and for pedestrians?
Yeah, good question. We did a lot of Walk With Us events on Farnham and Blackstone, especially at the beginning of the year. There were a couple of deaths and injuries there. We're really excited that there are some changes there that are great. The beg buttons are gone, so you don't have to press a button across the street anymore, and they've narrowed the lanes in some places, which is really great. I believe our Walk With Us event will be down around the location for the new library downtown, which has a lot of pedestrian issues. It's not very walkable or accessible at all. So definitely, yeah, in and around that Dodge Street corridor. But I'm trying to think of where the other ones we did were last year. I would say the other kind of category are places that we know that people are driving really, really quickly. So those tend to be, out west more, maybe some side streets that have heavy pedestrian traffic are what we tend to focus on.
Also, you mentioned I saw on one of your slides the issue of Moby accessibility.
Mm-hmm.
Are you guys doing anything with that, or was that just an example you were?
Yeah, well, we're always advocating for increased funding for transit, right? I think, citywide, we need more funding for a robust transit system. That's really one of the most important things that I think we can do as a city right now. I'll say too, we also advocated for better signage along metro routes, especially for folks who, using cell phone or who don't have great internet access is an issue. Having good signage about where the bus is coming from, where it's going to, is helpful and important. I think there's still a lot of room for improvement there. What was my final point? Oh, we're really excited about the move to the Regional Transit Authority that Metro has just made. So I expect in the next couple of years, a lot of our efforts will be in monitoring that, communicating out changes to the public, making sure that board has people who are aware of these issues and are able to advocate for them at a regional level instead of a citywide level.
That sounds awesome. Sounds awesome.
Thanks.
Other questions for Grace? Okay. I apologize for misstating your name.
No, you're good.
I caught myself as I was going. So thank you very much.
Yeah,
Really
thank you all.
appreciate
I'll send my contact information out and let us know if you ever have any questions or issues you want to discuss more.
Well, and just to our viewing audience, either on the television or online, I do have contact information for ModeShift. So if you contact the commission, we can get information to you on how to get in touch with ModeShift. So
Great. Thank you all so much. Have a good afternoon.
thank you.
Thanks.
With that, we're going to turn our attention over to an online presenter, Jeff Subchick, who's with the City of Omaha Public Works Traffic Division as the coordinator of the Vision Zero project. And so we were hoping to hear a little bit more from you, Jeff. So you're up.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you for that introduction. And sorry, I meant to be there in person, but yeah, came down and just had some technical issues. So I'm back up here in my office. So yeah, I've got a little presentation here to share with you guys.
We're working on it.
All right, can everybody see that?
The chat is, the chat's right in the middle. Okay. Yes, we can now.
Okay. So yeah, again, thanks for having me again. My name is Jeff Subchick. I'm the Vision Zero coordinator for the City of Omaha in the traffic department for Public Works. And I was asked to come here and talk about Vision Zero and Vision Zero in Omaha and what we're doing to become a Vision Zero city. So just kind of a brief overview of the presentation I have here. I'm just going to kind of give just a general overview of what Vision Zero is, kind of the problem that we have here in Omaha, introduction to Vision Zero, and then talk about what we're doing to become a Vision Zero city, and then talk a little bit about our Vision Zero action plan that we'll be working on, and then ending with some of the next steps moving forward, and then finish with some questions. So to begin, I just wanted to just bring up the main reason why I'm here and why we're all concerned is the persistent problem that continues to be a problem much too frequently in Omaha and in general across the country and worldwide is traffic fatalities and severe injuries. And Omaha is not like any other city. We continue to struggle with this problem. And much like most cities across the country, we tried our best, and we've gotten a lot of safety improvements, but we've kind of hit a wall with progress. So it's the intent was to try to look at this in a different perspective, and that was through the Vision Zero perspective that we're trying to approach right now. So just looking at the stats for Omaha, we see on average 36 deaths a year, 345 severe or disabling injuries a year. And back in the fall of 2019, the mayor publicly committed to Vision Zero. And what Vision Zero is a broad definition, it's a data-driven strategy to eliminate traffic fatalities and severe injuries among all road users and to ensure safe, healthy, and equitable mobility for all. And I included this sentence here, which I think is really important, is Vision Zero is not a slogan, not a tagline, and not even just a program. It's a commitment to a new culture of safety. I think that's really important to emphasize because I think when we say we're committing to Vision Zero, I think that's the easy part. That's the part that catches headlines. And it's easy to continue to say that, yeah, we're a Vision Zero city, we're trying to be a Vision Zero city, but the hard part is moving beyond that commitment and getting in the weeds of how do we create a new culture of safety that prioritizes safety over moving vehicles at unsafe speeds. And kind of taking a holistic view of culture change and just talking about how we talk about traffic violence, I think it's really important and kind of a very important first step in traffic safety and building that culture. And again, it just goes back to how we talk about it. We should be talking about it and calling when a vehicle crashes into somebody and there's a fatality, we shouldn't call it a traffic accident. We should be calling what it is. It's a crash. I mean, accident sends a message that it's not preventable. It's something that just is kind of par for the course with the way our transportation system is set up, and it's something that we have to accept when in reality accidents are actually the result of the systems that were created, decisions that were made in budgeting and policy and so forth. And when we move to more of a terminology that revolves around crash, that sends an important message that the kind of violence that we're seeing on the streets is unacceptable, and it is 100% preventable. So there's one thing that you take out of this presentation is to think about the words that you use when you're talking about this topic, and try to get the term accident out of your lexicon and start referring to it as crash, because that's really what it is, and it shows the intentionality that we don't accept this and it needs to change. So in the Vision Zero network across the country, there's over 52 cities that have committed and are part of the network, and Omaha is trying to be the 53rd community throughout the country. And there's some really great news that happened here just earlier this year when the federal government, the Federal Highway Authority committed to 0 deaths as the one and only goal, which is monumental for the country, and also it's monumental for cities that are committing to Vision Zero or committing to a goal of 0, and they have action plans, because with this commitment by the feds, there's now billions of dollars that are tied behind that commitment, which is huge for cities like Omaha that, we struggle with finding funding for commitments like this. And to be able to fund the projects that we really know will have a significant impact on the safety outcome for the public and getting us to zero. So when there is this kind of funding available, it's really important that we pursue this kind of grant funding in the future. So when we're talking about Vision Zero, I think one of the really important keys to it is to kind of think about what is the most important tool that saves lives and reduces serious injuries on our roadways. And that tool is speed management. I mean, when you just dumb everything down and just, if you had to talk about one thing with Vision Zero, it's speed and the effect that it has on the human body and the need for us to reduce impacts to tolerable levels. So I think this graphic, you do research on this topic and you'll see a lot of graphics like this, and the percentages are always off by a little bit. They're all a little different, but it's all pretty much telling you the same message. Where, so if you're hit by a vehicle that's driving 20 miles an hour, person, their chances of surviving that impact is 90%. And then if you go 10 miles an hour faster at 30 miles an hour, that chance of survival goes down to 60. And then once you hit about 40 miles an hour, just flipping the cards here, you now have an 80% chance of a fatality and only 20% chance of surviving that collision. So speed is the overwhelming factor that really matters the most when we're talking about Vision Zero and how we get there. And speaking of how we get there, Vision Zero is really built on the foundation of the Safe Systems approach. And what the Safe Systems approach is, it's the idea that we need to work and have safe road users, safe vehicles, safe speeds, safe roads, and post-crash care. And those systems are all working together and supported by the principles that death and serious injury are unacceptable, humans make mistakes, humans are vulnerable, responsibility is shared, safety is proactive, and redundancy is crucial. So kind of looking at a compare and contrast of what the traditional approach compared to what the Vision Zero approach is, and kind of the crash type of philosophy compared to the accident type of philosophy, whereas the traditional approach kind of looked at traffic deaths as inevitable. We're moving towards the view that traffic deaths are 100% preventable, whereas we had an approach where we felt that perfect human behavior was required for our roads to be safe. Vision Zero acknowledges that that's just really not realistic. Humans are flawed, we make mistakes, and it's our job to integrate those mistakes and our human failings into the approach, into our safe systems. The traditional approach was really focused on preventing collisions and preventing all collisions, whereas Vision Zero, it's pretty much, we need to focus our limited resources on preventing the worst of the worst. So we need to focus our attention on fatal and severe crashes, because those have the most lasting and permanent effect on individuals that are involved in those kind of crashes. And then individuals are viewed as sharing sole responsibility for their safety. And that was the traditional approach, whereas the Vision Zero looks at it, sees the value in individual responsibility, but looks at it more as it's not only just the individual, but the system-wide approach to safety. So it's not just the individual, there are other tiers that I'll get into on the next slide here. And lastly, the traditional approach weighed a lot on by saying that traditional approach is more in line with saying that saving lives is expensive, where Vision Zero says saving lives is not expensive. So what I was mentioning earlier with the safe systems, and so they operate with an upstream system, a safe system approach to safety. And so what that means, and instead of being reactive after something happens, we go in and evaluate and see what happened and try to correct whatever issue there is. If there is an issue that caused that we can do something to prevent that from happening again. We're looking more kind of upstream to look at issues before they become traffic fatalities or serious injuries. So looking upstream instead of downstream, being proactive instead of reactive. And with the safe systems approach, it's kind of it's taking a look at where we can provide the most safety improvement with the most amount of effort, with the greatest amount of results. And where that's located is at the top of the area where we've got your influence in policy and legislators and changing organizational practices. Those are the two areas that you can have the most effect on the most the larger area parts of the city, and where, especially if you have limited budgets, it's important to be very strategic about how we spend money. So that's where it comes down to. We need to make our decision makers educated on what the issues are, so we can make more educated, informed decisions on how to best allocate resources to where these problem areas are. And then in the middle of this triangle, you'll see the fostering of coalitions and networks, educating providers. Those are all very important. So bringing together partnerships and bridging together like-minded institutions or organizations that all have a similar mission, and seeing how we can work together to achieve the safety results that we're all looking for. And then on the lower rung here, it's the kind of the promoting individual safety and education, strengthening individual knowledge and skill sets. Again, this is important as well, but again, we're looking at what has the most effect citywide, and just statistically speaking, these educational events, while very important, they just don't have the kind of results that we want to have, especially if we're going to get to Vision Zero. And again, that's why prioritizing the top two rungs here are important, because they've shown that that's the area that has the most influence to create the kind of safety culture change that we need. So how a safe systems approach would actually work when it comes to safe mobility is, I think this is a pretty good visual of how it would work. So you have your system planners and your policymakers, and they're responsible for prioritizing safety and design policy and budgets. And then you move down to the individual road users. So they're responsible to follow the rules, so drive the speed limits or go under the speed limit. Watch out for road users when you're making turns. If you're pedestrian, follow the traffic signals, go to locations that are the safest to cross, and follow all the rules of the road that are in there to make you safe. However, there are always caveats. And then on the other end, there is, so if road users do make mistakes, the design and policy analysts analyze the issue and try to find safety improvements. So once a problem does happen, analyze it and see what could be done to try to change this. And then we go back to the system and planners and policymakers to prioritize whatever was found out as like, hey, we can fix this by changing this policy or changing this kind of design standard. And then just the cycle continues until eventually we do get to a point where we get to zero. So working to become a Vision Zero city, the most important thing is that first year, which we're going to be doing to create a Vision Zero action plan, which we have to have in order to become an official Vision Zero city to join the Vision Zero network. And some common themes that we'll see in our action plan that just about every single city has in their action plan are some of the things I've listed here. And it's just broadly speaking. So we'll assess our current safety situation in our system. So we'll have a very data-driven approach to developing a high injury network. And what a high injury network is typically statistically, just about every city, it's usually about the same. It's like the top 5 or 7% of the roads that have 50 to 70% of your severe and fatal crash injuries. And so it's identifying those high injury networks and putting as much resources as possible into those, because that's going to have the biggest bang for our buck. We're going to build leadership and partnerships, as I was mentioning earlier. So looking for similarities with organizations, nonprofits, and other partner agencies and other departments that typically don't work together. And bringing them all together because we all share that same common goal of safety for the public. Identify and build common understanding of challenges and opportunities, both internally and externally. So internally, that's going to be a lot of just internal departmental meetings where we just kind of have kind of just candid conversations about where we think we're doing well, where we're not, and where we have opportunities for improvement, and just kind of challenging each other on things that we are doing or things that we could be doing, and kind of listening to possible other ideas and how to possibly do better, or just come up with completely brand new ideas on how to progress forward to get us to zero. Prioritizing equity and community engagement, I'll speak to that a little bit later, but that kind of is very, very important. Equity is in the news so frequently right now, and as well as it should be, and bringing the community in that to share their voice with decision makers and policymakers is very important for this entire process. So we're going to have to lean on that a lot, and bringing those that have been underserved for so long to finally have a voice, I think it's definitely going to be very valuable for us and important. And as I mentioned earlier, managing speeds to safe levels is paramount to our success, and that's going to be a common theme throughout the action planning process. And then lastly is setting a timeline to achieve zero traffic deaths and serious injuries. This is really, really important, mainly because if we don't set any kind of timeline, there's really nothing that is holding us accountable. There's nothing that really sparks us to move to action. Because yeah, if we don't say, hey, we're going to get to zero by 2034 or 2033, there's really nothing that changes the status quo of just kind of slow playing things and saying, hey, we'll get there eventually. And that's not the process that we want to take. That's not the process that Vision Zero wants us to take. There needs to be urgency, and there needs to be accountability. And when we do have a timeline established and committed and shared with the public, there's that understanding that, hey, this is what we're going to do. This is when we want to have it done, and we need to be held accountable. So yeah, please, we're going to inform you throughout the process, and we're going to let you know when we're kind of behind our schedule and what we're doing to get where we need to be. And as I mentioned previously, I was going to touch upon the prioritize equity again. But so if we follow data, it's inevitably going to take us to the area of equity and prioritizing it, because when we identify our high injury network, pretty much all the data is showing that it's going to be in our communities of concern. So that's pretty much our areas in the city that have been underfunded, which is typically our older people, people of color, communities of disadvantage that they're at low income, have one car or don't have a car, rely on public transit, rely on sidewalks, a lot of vulnerable users, and yeah, just a lot of areas that just haven't seen a lot of investment. Those are just so happen to be also the areas that have a lot of a very disproportional amount of severe and fatal crashes. So that's likely going to be where a lot of our attention and effort is, and that's also an area where the federal government really wants us to see us investing a lot of our dollars, and that's where, fortunately, we'll be getting a lot of money is when we do prioritize these areas, so we can make them as safe as possible. So when we're talking about Vision Zero, I think overarching theme in all of it is just this idea of universal mobility, and accessibility is, I think, tied in, tied into just about everything that we need to be doing moving forward. And not just considering trying to build to just the minimum standard. We need to be more proactive in how we think about the fact that really at any time in our lives, we're going to need accessibility. And we can't just think about, oh, well, there's the ADA requirement, we have to do this. We have to think beyond that, hey, regardless of your age, your natural ability, your health, your socioeconomic status, and your ability to afford a vehicle or not afford a vehicle, you need to use the sidewalks, you need to have accessibility, you need to be able to have a public transit system that's accessible and connected and has the proper kind of signage, that was mentioned earlier in the other presentation, that can steer people in the right direction of where they need to be to get mobilized and be able to move to where they need to be. So this universal mobility concept, I think, is very important for us to be able to serve the community as we should, to provide that safe mobility for all users. And we're going to get there through Complete Streets, which has been a relatively new design concept for the city that was, I think, permanently adopted several years ago, and we're slowly trying to build this complete street policy into our design standards moving forward. It's still a work in progress, but in a nutshell, it's pretty much accommodating all users and acknowledging that the space needs to be allocated for everyone's needs. So space for people to use the sidewalks, and not just your bare minimum, but where possible, we need to provide as much as possible, because again, depending on your ability, if you have a wheelchair, or if you just have you have a hard time just walking around, you need assistance, or if you're walking in groups, the more space that you have to separate yourself from vehicular traffic, the better. So, and also safe spaces for bikes that are not only just safe but connected, that make sense, that are well designed, and you understand the routes, how to get from point A to point B, and space for cars, but also the space for cars that doesn't enable cars to be able to move at unsafe speeds. So a lot of traffic calming measures that are going to be very important for us moving forward, to have safe speeds and have roads that are engineered to enforce the speed limit it's designated for, mass transit space for that, and having that being accessible, as well as just not only just accessible, but having that being on time and coordinated well with the city, with any kind of design project or road project. I know that's an area that definitely needs some improvement with the city, and that'll be definitely discussed through our Vision Zero action plan, is just that better coordination between Metro and the city when we do have complete street road projects. And then shared mobility, and then also just space for, as this mentions, creative comfort. So more of your kind of street furniture, your kind of your place making settings, just understanding that big picture, the road is an ecosystem. Everything is working together, and we want to get that proper harmony. And I just on the side that I wrote, the biggest challenge here that not only we have, everyone has, every municipality has, is just balancing the needs of all because of limited funding. And that's something that we're definitely gonna have to evaluate moving forward, is how we budget for complete streets and how we budget for roadway expansion and road repair and sidewalks. And these are all issues that I don't have the solution for right now, and it's going to take a lot of collaboration between a lot of people, a lot of departments, to come up with the ideas that we are going to need to have for us to be able to have a complete street policy that we can really double down on, for us to have safer roads and accessible and connected roads that benefit the public, that can get us to zero. And just, if we can do it right, this is kind of this is the general concept idea of what our complete street system could look like, that will enable safer speeds, that affects everybody, that once we get these streets to accommodate more users, that inevitably will slow traffic down, and make people feel like, people that are driving feel like they're not driving on a highway, but more of a denser urban environment that requires them to be more conscious of their surroundings and more aware of their speeds and the possible vulnerable users that are coming into contact with them as they're driving. So next step, we're going to be looking, right now we're trying to finalize our contract with the consultant team that we're bringing on board to help us kind of build capacity and build this plan. And that's estimated to be hopefully done come August or September of this year. And then once the process starts, there'll be a lot of public engagement, and that's going to be going on throughout the process. And then plan development, and then plan review, and a lot of that, there'll be a lot of that public outreach. So kind of opportunities to review the plan and get some public input is going to be invaluable for us moving forward. And we're looking at probably a late summer timeline for that. And then hopefully we'll have our plan finalized and adopted in the fall of next year. So on that, if anyone had any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
We probably only have time for about a question or two, Jeff, so I'll open it up. I would have one request, given that this planning and this process really impacts our citizens with disabilities, I think, in a major way. Would it be reasonable to just ask that you periodically update the commission with your progress in terms of the planning and outcomes? This sounds awesome, I think, from a disability space perspective. And we'd just like to hear more, and I don't necessarily need to schedule more presentations per se, but just keeping the commission aware, because we have links throughout the community to different community. I can't talk.
I was
to different areas of disability, different folks with different types of disabilities. So we could serve as a way to kind of get the word out, and as well as maybe to bring the word back in terms of how your progress is going, and how we can support that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree anymore, and I think you guys would be a great resource for us moving forward too, because your insights, I think, would be invaluable. Because I'm no expert in accessibility, and I think you'd find nothing but open ears on our end, because we want your guys' input. So I definitely see a great opportunity for a role, for you guys to have a role in this moving forward, and at the bare minimum, providing updates to you guys. It's definitely something I can do.
That'd be great. Thank you very much. With that, we probably we just have a couple of minutes. Before we end, are there any announcements from the group? We're really down to the wire here.
Sorry, the presentation took too long.
Oh, that's okay. No, you're fine. We really appreciated everything you had to say, and we were listening. So yeah, no, not time for, not looking for an apology. Believe me, Jeff. Thank you very much. I did want to mention one thing. On the 29th, there is a Disability Pride celebration. This is in Lincoln. It's at Bethany Park, but it's meant for just about anybody who's interested in attending. It has activities for kids. It has a brief presentation on the history of Disability Pride in Nebraska. It's being put on by a number of groups, including the Nebraska Council on Developmental Disabilities and others. The main thing is that if you need more information, you can contact Sherry Stansberry. Her number is 308-233-1491. I'm not sure exactly where Bethany Park is, but I think Sherry knows. And that's 66th and Vine. Not hard to. That is not difficult to find. It's from 11 to 3 on the 29th, and I think all are welcome. July 29th. So in the next few days. So time to get the word out. That's right, we're in June. Never mind. So you have a whole month to plan. Boy, I am just on my game here. So again, thank you to Grace and Jeff for their presentations. Thank you to the commission members. Thank you to Jamie, our interpreter. Welcome to Ashley for attending today. And with that, I think we're adjourned. And thanks for everybody who attended online. Thanks for being here today.